Everyone's talking about going to Mars. Before we dream about living on Mars, we need to talk about a mission that already happened, not in space, but in the Arizona desert. 8 people, 2 years, a sealed glass world called Biosphere 2. It was humanity's boldest attempt to recreate Earth in a box. It was supposed to simulate life on another planet. Instead, it revealed how unprepared we really are. Here is how it happened. The seeds of Biosphere 2 were planted in the 1970s by John P. Allen, a systems thinker and poet. He was inspired by Buckminster Fuller's concept of spaceship Earth, that we are all passengers on a self-contained planet. Together with a visionary arts collective called the Synergists, Allen envisioned a living laboratory, both ecological and theatrical. Their idea: let's build an artificial biosphere, a complete closed system with plants, animals, air, water, and humans. A test bed for living on Mars. They partnered with billionaire Ed Bass, who funded the vision. The cost? Over $200 million. What was Biosphere 2? And why 2? Earth is Biosphere 1. So the project was named Biosphere 2. Construction began in 1987 in the Arizona desert. It took 4 years. The goal was daunting: zero exchange with the outside world. Every molecule of water and air would be recycled. Every nutrient would circulate in a loop. It was a 3.14-acre sealed glass structure in Arizona, containing 5 mini-biomes: a rainforest, an ocean, a desert, a savanna, and a mangrove wetland. It had over 3,800 species of plants and animals, and 8 biospherians were supposed to survive inside for 2 years without any outside help. In short, a giant laboratory, yes, but also a vision for future space colonization. The experiment begins. Paradise turns prison. Selected from hundreds of applicants, the 8 chosen biospherians trained for 2 years before entering. They weren't astronauts or celebrities. They were generalists, botanists, engineers, medical doctors, and ecologists. Their mission: grow all their own food, maintain ecological balance, record everything: oxygen levels, animal behavior, crop yields. They entered on September 26, 1991, waving to crowds, then disappearing behind the sealed doors. At first it worked. Tomatoes bloomed, bananas ripened, chickens laid eggs. The biospherians adapted to the rhythms of nature. They developed community routines, celebrated birthdays, and published newsletters. There were moments of harmony: singing, dancing, shared meals. They innovated farming techniques, experimented with new recipes, and even managed to prepare occasional treats like banana bread and goat cheese. Visitors waved from the outside. Media called it Spaceship Earth. Children around the world sent letters. And then, the problems began. They noticed that plant growth was not uniform. Some areas received more sunlight than others. Watering schedules had to be constantly adjusted. They battled fungus in the rainforest biome and mold in the living quarters. One of the most intense challenges inside Biosphere 2 was food. The biospherians cultivated over 80 crops, including sweet potatoes, peanuts, rice, wheat, bananas, papayas, and a range of beans and vegetables. However, not all crops yielded as expected. Sweet potatoes thrived and quickly became a staple, while others like wheat and rice suffered from inconsistent sunlight, pest issues, and poor yields. They raised small numbers of goats, pigs, chickens, and tilapia fish. Goats provided milk, which the crew used to make yogurt, kefir, and even soft cheese. Chickens supplied eggs, though egg production declined over time due to stress and diet inconsistencies. Managing livestock in a sealed system meant every aspect, manure, feed, water, had to be part of a closed loop. Even minor imbalances could have ripple effects on air quality and waste systems. Initially, Biosphere 2 included pollinators like bees, but within a few months nearly all the bees died, likely due to environmental stresses such as CO2 buildup or changes in barometric pressure. Without bees, human crew members had to hand-pollinate many plants daily using fine brushes, a task that was incredibly time-consuming but vital for food production. Crew members lost between 10 to 15% of their body weight. As the months passed, a troubling pattern emerged. Oxygen levels were steadily dropping. Biospherians began experiencing fatigue, mental fog, shortness of breath, and disturbed sleep. These symptoms mirrored high-altitude sickness. Blood tests showed reduced oxygen saturation. Initially, scientists thought the decline was due to an imbalance in plant respiration, but the problem was deeper. Soil microbes were consuming more oxygen than anticipated, especially in the agricultural biome. Simultaneously, the concrete infrastructure was absorbing carbon dioxide and locking it away chemically, reducing the availability of CO2 for plants and disrupting photosynthesis. Despite attempts to grow more oxygen-producing crops and reduce respiration rates, the oxygen concentration inside Biosphere 2 dropped from 21% to 14%, comparable to the summit of Mount Everest. The drop in oxygen was so severe that they risked brain damage. Alarmed by the physiological effects, the project managers decided to inject pure oxygen into the structure to prevent medical emergencies. This intervention broke the seal of the closed system. Media critics seized on it as a failure, but scientists saw it differently. It provided rare, real-world data on how micro-ecosystems respond to enclosed atmospheric changes. The experience emphasized the delicate balance required for survival in space habitats and future planetary colonies. By the second year, the team had become more efficient. Food production increased thanks to better crop rotation, pest management, and learned routines. They had adapted not just to the food, but to the entire biosphere. Yet their bodies were lean and their spirits were fatigued. Still, they had done something unprecedented. On September 26, 1993, exactly 2 years later, the doors were opened. The Biospherians were met with cheering crowds, flashing cameras, and something they hadn't smelled in years: fresh air. They had produced over 80% of their own food, maintained all waste and air cycles internally, proved that long-term human habitation in a closed ecological system was possible. The first thing many of them did outside: eat a slice of pizza, drink a soda, smell fresh, unfiltered desert air. There were tears, laughter, and a deep sense of awe. After 2 years of confinement, food tasted brighter, air felt richer, and the earth itself seemed more alive. Biosphere 2 proved that sealing humans inside an artificial world is far harder than anyone imagined. The experiment exposed our fragile dependence on Earth's delicate balance and the psychological toll of isolation. Yet, in its failure, it laid the groundwork for humanity's next great challenge: surviving on Mars. The dream of a Martian colony hinges on one question: will we repeat Biosphere 2's mistakes, or finally outsmart them? Let's dive into the 7 biggest problems we'll face while trying to settle Mars, and what Biosphere 2 taught us about each one. 1. Atmospheric failure. Oxygen isn't easy. Mars has virtually no breathable atmosphere, less than 1% of Earth's pressure, and almost no oxygen. So settlers will need to generate every breath they take from water electrolysis or artificial biospheres. But even on Earth, we failed to do this perfectly. In Biosphere 2, oxygen levels dropped dangerously low. Despite having thousands of plants and a sealed environment, the crew experienced fatigue, confusion, and breathlessness. Soil microbes consumed more oxygen than expected. Concrete absorbed carbon dioxide, disrupting the cycle. Eventually, oxygen had to be pumped in from outside. This revealed just how fragile atmospheric balance really is. On Mars, if something similar happens, there is no outside help. One leak, one blocked system, and it could mean suffocation. Maintaining a stable, breathable atmosphere isn't just science, it's survival. 2. Food will be an obsession, not a choice. Imagine growing everything you eat in a sealed dome, with limited water, no soil, and no pollinators. In Biosphere 2, the crew lived mostly on sweet potatoes, beans, and bananas. They lost weight, became obsessed with food, and experienced nutrient deficiencies. Protein was scarce. Goats provided milk. Chickens gave eggs. But every calorie had to be earned through intense labor. Farming in a closed loop meant managing pests, compost, temperature, and plant stress, all without modern farming machinery. Now take that challenge to Mars. Harsh temperatures, radiation, low sunlight, and sterile soil will make growing crops far harder. Hydroponics and controlled environments will help, but crop failure could mean starvation. Food will not be a source of comfort. It will be a daily test of survival. 3. Water recycling. Every drop counts. Water is life. On Mars, it exists only in frozen or salty forms. We'll need to extract it, purify it, and recycle it constantly. In Biosphere 2, water came from recycling systems that included human waste, condensation, and filtration wetlands. The crew monitored every drop. Shower times were limited. Cooking water was reused. Even urine was recycled into clean water. This worked, but required perfect maintenance. Any contamination or equipment failure could ruin the entire system. On Mars, this becomes even more critical. No one is flying in bottled water. Any failure in water purification could lead to dehydration, disease, or complete mission failure. Every leak, every flush, every drop must be accounted for. Water will be more valuable than gold. 4. Psychological pressure. The silent enemy in Biosphere 2, the crew began to psychologically unravel after just a few months. They split into factions, some stopped talking, and trust disintegrated, even though they'd trained for years. On Mars, isolation will be far more extreme. Millions of kilometers from home, no real-time calls. There will be no escape, no open space, no fresh air, just metal walls and recycled breath. Monotony will be maddening. The same meals, same tasks, same people every single day. Sleep disturbances, cabin fever, and depression could be common if not actively managed. Resentments could fester. One argument could become a mission-ending rift. Teams will need therapists, mediators, and emotional tools just as much as engineers and scientists. Mental health isn't optional in space, it's mission-critical. Because on Mars, loneliness won't feel poetic, it will feel lethal. 5. Ecological chaos. Life finds a way, and death too. Nature is unpredictable, even in sealed environments. Biosphere 2 tried to simulate balance and failed. Bees died off. Plants had to be hand-pollinated. Meanwhile, cockroaches and crazy ants multiplied uncontrollably. Mars colonies will also be closed ecosystems. One microbial outbreak could wipe out crops. Any foreign organism, mold, bacteria, fungus, can spread faster than we can contain it. Balancing oxygen, CO2, soil nutrients, and pH is a delicate dance, not a formula. Over-fertilize the lettuce? The fish tank dies. Add too much algae? Your oxygen drops. We can't assume we'll outsmart ecosystems. We'll have to respect, respond, and adapt constantly. Ecological chaos won't always look dramatic. It'll creep in, quiet, invisible, unstoppable. Even with all the tech, we're still working with life, and life does what it wants. Mars won't be a garden, it'll be a survival jungle in a can. 6. Group dynamics. Who's the boss? Biosphere 2's biggest failure wasn't mechanical, it was social. The team divided into hostile groups. Conflict arose over leadership, strategy, and personal differences, just months into a 2-year mission. On Mars, every crew member must trust each other completely, or the mission could collapse. But trust doesn't come easy when you're stressed, hungry, and trapped. Clear leadership structure, role definitions, and conflict resolution protocols will be essential. A fight over workload or decision-making could delay oxygen generation or water recycling. You can't take a walk to cool off. There's no HR department, no timeouts. The crew will need more than technical skills. They'll need emotional intelligence and diplomacy. Even one toxic relationship could jeopardize the survival of all. On Mars, teamwork isn't just nice, it's oxygen, water, and food. 7. You can't simulate Mars forever. Biosphere 2 was the best Earth had to offer in terms of simulation, and it still failed. Oxygen had to be pumped in, pollinators died, the team fractured, the system bent under pressure. Now imagine that same situation, but with -80 degrees Celsius temperatures, no backup team, and no escape pod. We can simulate Mars all we want, but it won't prepare us for the reality of living there. Equipment breaks, people get tired, habitats degrade. We need contingency plans not for if things fail, but for when. The Martian frontier will be the ultimate test of human adaptability, and success won't come from perfection, it'll come from persistence. We must go not with arrogance, but with humility, realism, and resilience, because Mars isn't just an opportunity, it's a responsibility. Now we dream of living on Mars, a place colder than Antarctica, drier than the Sahara, and deadlier than deep space. There are no safety nets, no exits, no outside help. If living on Earth inside a glass shell was hard, living on Mars will be unimaginably harder. Mars won't forgive mistakes. It will demand precision, unity, resilience, but it won't be a miracle that gets us there. It will be science, sweat, and the belief that we can build life where there was none. It's going to be tough, but it's not impossible. And if we do it right, it might just be the most extraordinary thing humanity ever achieves.